How's everybody doing tonight? Out there, browsing through YouTube. Today we have a Tre Capital record. I think this record was actually supposed to release back in April, but it didn't. I don't know that much about Tre Capital. I listened to his first couple of mixtapes, Gundam, which if you don't know Gundam, go watch some Gundam. Gundam's so underrated in society right now. I think everyone needs to go watch some Gundam for the betterment of society. Also, the album art for this album is actually super cool. So we have Tre Capital's new record, Hero, and you'll definitely remember the name if you actually go ahead and listen to this record. I was feeling like something new. I was gonna review the new Gorillaz record, but it's not as hip-hop focused, even though Snoop Dogg's on there, as their last record. So I just decided, you know what, I'm feeling something new, so we're gonna go with Tre Capital. I saw that he released this. Let's get right into it. The first track on here is WestCoast Savior, parts 1 and 2 combined into the same track. The first part of this record has Tre Cap not straying too far away from his very familiar sound, with some of these hard-hitting drum patterns and ominous chime that create this vibe like you might find on an Underachievers record, like the one It Happened in Flatbush. But a minute into this song and you realize all these small additions into the production that make it a lot more spacier, or that give it a spacier tone rather, and make you feel like you're in a trap dungeon or something, especially with like these effects taken straight out of Kanye's record, Ye. I still do think that the chimes are a little bit cliche, but the overall added production just makes it a little bit more interesting and adds some flavor to the energy that Tre brings on this track, which is nice. There's this part of the song that kind of serves as a transition into the second half of the song, part 2 of WestCoast Savior, and it takes a more reflective tone but draws inspiration from the first half of the song, using a piano instead of the chimes and giving it a more nostalgic tone, mixed with what I think is some melancholic guitar playing. The vibe that I get from this song, especially when you get to the second half, is that it's very introspective, but at the same time, it's full of eagerness to persevere, and overall I think it's a really good starter for this album. Tre has a bit of a history with these anime references or Asian art references, and that continues on this song. Even the name of the song, I was expecting a very creative flow, a bunch of flow switches, changes in the delivery or something like that, but as I started to listen, I understood why he chose the name for this song. It's not so much creative as it is matching the intensity of the production on here, with what I think are some crazy synth and these colossal drums, like something slowly is marching, something big is marching towards you. The flow in here is pretty wild in terms of energy, with Tre really getting intense on the chorus and talking about how he's forcing his way into the rap game, which coincides with a lot of the stuff that he raps about on this track, such as having a lot of music but not wanting to release it because he wants to make it the best he can, and also not wanting to sign to a label. I think the electronic arpeggios at the end of this track are a really nice touch. They kind of fill the vibe of this song, and well, that energy vibe of this, we're talking about Blue Eyes White Dragon, some straight up Yu-Gi-Oh stuff. It makes it feel like a big blue ball of energy. I don't know, that sounds totally weird to say, but if you listen to this, you'll get what I mean. But it really signs off well on this track. Tre continues the theme that has started this album off with perseverance onto this next track. Reach the Sky is all about it, and how Tre has shifted the culture with his music. And as much as the sentiment might be good and what he's going for might be good, I find the production really lacking on this song. It's definitely not minimalistic or anything, there's a lot going on, but the whining guitar note on this that leads into the chorus I don't think is given enough room in the space of the production to really come out in full force and bring that energy that it has. It can't fill the space properly on this track because of the mixing. And in general, honestly, everything seems a little bit cluttered. The bouncy electronic instruments on this also just don't create the impact that I think Tre was going for on this song. With the lead out taking time out of this track too, this song is barely only 2 minutes, and there was nothing really too impressive on this, and it probably won't be something that I'll personally be returning to. From Within sounds a little bit tedious on this record, as it's the 4th track on here in a row that's about persevering in the rap game, and the chorus on here sounds a little bit nasally and overplayed to me. Also, the amount of times that Tre cites the name of this album on the whole album, on every single song on here, is just ridiculous. It's like instead of paying for promotion, he just turned every single song into an ad. Anthony Kilhofer
whoever that is, just he does a horrible job on this, I think. Like, the writing is just bad on this. There's just some corny ass lines on here. And then at the end, he calls out No Jumper for being a modern day Jerry Springer. I don't know, it's just so weird. It's not even like it was part of his verse. He's just calling out No Jumper at the end to just kind of lead out the track. I don't know, but this song sounds so SoundCloud to me, and it just doesn't sound like the song should be on a professionally produced album. By this time, the production also gets a little bit tasking because it's just been so intense up until this point. It's getting a little bit overbearing to listen to. And there's nothing really that special about this song in terms of production, in terms of delivery, flow, composition. It seems randomly put together, like he just got some dude off the street to feature on it and start rapping about, or just talking about how he doesn't like No Jumper. On the song Been Through It, Tre Cap gets on his Big Sean flow, and he'd do a pretty good job imitating Big Sean. And he talks about police brutality, or the value that we place on black men in society in general. Many times, Tre doesn't really stay on beat on this song. And here for the first time, we see a change in the production from being super intense to lowering the energy a little bit, and it's got some bright synths, some dark and shaky piano sections, but I don't think it really works out for him. The chorus on here is the only thing I really think is good, and even then, Tre just seems dry and melancholic, and it just doesn't have that impact that I think he was looking for. It was a good sentiment, but it's a lackluster execution. In the song Love, Tre takes a more spoken word approach, and he talks about what inspired him to rap, including his mother's drinking, his parents' divorce, and the untimely and unfortunate death of his younger brother. And he honestly, to continue with these imitations, sounds a little bit like XXXTentacion on this. I can see where Tre was going with the production on this track, but I think it just really fell through on him with these just ear-piercing vocal samples and what I consider to be a pretty uninspired piano section that backs them up. Tre's flow on this is also just unrelenting. It is more like a spoken word sort of thing, so he just kind of keeps going, and it gives you little time to kind of take in what he's talking about. Therefore, it just has a less of an impact on you, and then the production doesn't really support that well what he's saying anyway. It seems like a good idea, but again, the execution just fell through. On the song Make Way, we have Tre flexing a little bit, and I personally don't have that much to say about this song. There's really nothing special on here, and the rest of the album just hasn't impressed me up until this point. The first two tracks were pretty okay. I'd say the first track is the best track on here so far, but the rest of the album hasn't really impressed me, so whatever he's saying on here when he's flexing doesn't really leave that big of an impact on me. And the line, "Time to put these kids to bed, call it bedstock," is like the best bar on here, which, I mean, that's pretty corny already, so there's more hero advertising on this track. It sounds like an even lamer version of Big Sean on this, especially with the writing on here. Like, halfway through the song, you're just bored. There's nothing really interesting on here, even with the production, and I'm honestly starting to feel like the dude on the album art listening to this, and there's still 2 more songs on this. On the song Give It All, Tre's talking about how he's giving us his all on this track, and it's honestly just some of the most lethargic delivery I've heard so far. The production is spacey, and it's a little bit more interesting than the previous tracks on here, than a couple of the previous tracks on here, but barely any of the production is really used to his advantage with how spacey this is, especially with his vocals. Mateus Young is featured on this track, and he honestly sounds like a Walmart brand Lil Wayne. I honestly started to feel bad for Tre at this point in the album, like I was getting depressed myself a little bit. Then the ending of the song has this lead out with this woman sample talking about how we all have racial biases and stuff, and that sounds like something interesting that you might be able to rap about, but it literally has nothing to do with the rest of the song. It literally just makes no sense to me why that's there. Heat Check is an okay closer for this album. I don't really know what's going on in the production in terms of what instruments are being used.
but there's a lot, and it sounds like this buzzing is going on. I'm sure there's some pianos and synths, some sort of electronic instruments to make this buzzing noise. But I just can't help but laugh when Tre says that he's giving us another classic, which I don't know which album he thinks is his first classic, but he insists that he's giving us another classic when on every single track on this album, he is plugging the name of the album. Like, this is the last track on here. I know what I've been listening to the whole time. You don't have to tell me I'm listening to Hero. And despite the title of this song, Heat Check, there's very little heat on this thing in terms of lyrical ability, writing. There's nothing that stands out to me as a good bar. I mean, there's, you know, some simple wordplay on here, but there's nothing that really strikes me as crazy. But I think the instrumental switch up at the end of this is a pretty elegant way to send off the album, with the buzzing kind of going away, and instead you can start to hear all the instruments. There's some brass in there, I think, too. There's just some good instrumentation at the end of this track, but it's the end of the album, so I won't lie, the first track on this album really impressed me for how unheard of popular Tre Capital is. But as I went deeper and deeper into the track list and was listening to these songs, I just wanted this thing to be over. I feel like Tre has a lot of things that he wants to and can talk about. Some very relatable and socially conscious things, but he just hasn't found a way to translate that into music yet. The album went from very intense and almost overbearing to very depressing real quick. And it's not like it's a bad thing, it's just that it doesn't seem like there was any structure to it. And many parts seemed awkward and overplayed, and things just seemed like they were thrown in there at random, especially at the ends of many of these songs. I feel like this album is like a 2 on a really good day. But if you have listened to this album, let me know what you think. I'll have another mixtape Monday on Monday, and there's some good releases coming up soon, so I'll try to get those out as fast as I can, but I do want to have some time to listen before I just dump out a review. But until next time, peace.